At Quinnipiac, we see more than a campus. We see a community built to ignite passions. We see more than a degree. We see the careers of tomorrow. We see more than a student. We see someone destined to make an impact.
It begins with our mission and values, a culture of innovation and collaboration, achieving a global perspective beyond the classroom, turning education and theory into practice, developing lifelong interests and connections, and striving to make a difference in our communities. Marist College.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the EGF. We are back for the spring split and more SSBU action. My name is Soy. Joining me at the desk here is User Intel. User Intel, how's it going?
Well, I gotta say, it's going really good. Been enjoying everything that's been popping out so far, and well, actually, nothing's been popping out. We went on a break. Things are back, and I'm absolutely excited for it. Want to set you up at least for that moment, especially with the two teams that we have here today.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. We'll be starting off with a MAC division battle, but before we get into that, we'll be talking about this later on in the day. There was some big news over the break. The Big Sky Conference joined the EGF, so a couple new schools joining the brawl. There was a little bit of conference realignment, and we'll get into that more, I think, next set when we have one of those newcomers on screen. But for now, we focus on Quinnipiac versus Marist, and this is bound to be a good one.
I definitely have to agree, especially since we can see how they, their play styles have changed, how they've adapted, and more importantly, how they plan to go up against each other. I think that's going to be extremely exciting to look at. Smash meta doesn't really change too often, so I think it's really relying on these player comfortabilities.
And these are two schools, too, that have really, found success here in the EGF. Both are 4-0 in their in-conference play, so they are tied for first in their own conference. Both teams are 7-1 on top of that, and their only losses are to really titans of the EGF. Quinnipiac at 7-1. Their only losses to DePaul, who was in grand finals last season. They are the independent conference champions. And Marist, their only loss was to William & Mary, one of the few remaining teams that I believe is undefeated so far this season.
Definitely a good point, and I think that's going to kind of change how these teams are going to be kind of going at each other. I don't know how much you've gone against somebody who's been one of those more undefeated teams, but it can be kind of overwhelming. It can be very scary, especially, they bring that top player in, they show their muscles, they're ready to
last time these two teams played in the regular season, and it came down to the very last set between these two. The final score of that game was Quinnipiac 18, Marist 12, and it was Baco getting the best of Absol in that last set. And Baco is one of the players, too, I think, that you kind of have a focus on if you are Quinnipiac, because Baco numerous times last season. Quinnipiac was the cardiac kids. Numerous times they won in that last set, and it was Baco time and time again finding ways to clutch it out. This season 4-2, you have to wonder whether they will hold him back as an anchor or put him out early, see if they can get some early points on the board.
Oh, that is a big risk. I wouldn't be too surprised if you throw that player in just to be able to have some comfortability, get that little bit of practice. And as much as you want to be able to try to get those points as early as possible, I definitely feel, waiting out, holding that player in, you may be setting them up for a tougher challenge down the end. It's always that kind of rock, paper, scissors that these players are going for in these matches. So at least I think when it comes down to this match, it is going to be very hectic. There is not much literally on the line, but definitely these players and how they feel. That's what's going to be most important.
Yeah, and these are two teams that when you look at how they've played in the MAC specifically, the past 2 seasons, these guys have found themselves in MAC Conference Grand Finals. Season 1 Grand Finals was Marist versus Siena. Season 2, Quinnipiac in Grand Finals against Siena. So these are 2 teams that really, have some stature in the MAC and are looking to hold on to that here. It's not often that they get to play against each other. It's always a treat when they do so. Marist, on the other side of things, I talked a little bit about Quinnipiac, but Marist, on the flip side of that, they've had some roster changes over the last couple of years, but what's really been impressive is that the talent that they've brought in, it has been on fire. Specifically, I should say, players like Relax, Coldface, these are new guys to this roster, and they've really shown up big. Relax 6-0 on this Greninja, and Coldface, through a whole cast of characters, has gone 3-1, and they've been a huge reason why Marist has had so much success here.
That's definitely a great point. That's one of your star players, so I'm very interested to see what their main point goes in and how they're definitely looking, especially when I feel Quinn and Marist, of all the teams to go after each other this early in the season, it's definitely one of those that sets the pace of what's going on in the future. More than anything, I definitely feel Quinn, they've had at least consistent players when it came down to the last season. They just always had the ability to come back when very close moments, though those exact memories, they flow out my brain a tiny bit. They still have a pretty stacked roster with players who run all types of characters, to Bowser Jr. all the way down to even Pichu, which is considered one of those low tiers. Which, it's that kind of risk and reward that you go with. So when you're going up against your opponents, Martians, who often go with a lot more sustainable characters, we see Greninja, we see Versus up against Bowser Jr. I think that's a very interesting matchup, and it's gonna matter to see what they do to try to counteract each other at times.
So these are 2 of the players we had a huge focus on. Grit, the Bowser Jr. for Quinnipiac, and Relax on this Greninja. Fun fact, Grit new to the Quinnipiac roster, and so far undefeated this season, 7-0, and Relax also undefeated, 6-0 this season. So 2 young players with a lot of talent going head to head here.
Ooh, look at this. Grit is having no room for the setup. It's mostly been Relaxed, looking to just knock you in the air and then push you off as far as they can. Not going for any big confirms, but rather just these small little chip damage over time that Grit can't really compare to. I mean, these are the moments where Grit is wanting to use that spam to try to get this out, but it's still being a big risk against Relax.
I like that downward angle and the recovery from Relax, knowing Grit was going to try and catch any high recovery with that forward smash, have to carefully snap to that ledge, but you see Relax still at a deficit, still trying to find a way out of the corner here, stalling out, can't find the tech though against the bomb throw. That was great by Grit.
That was incredibly dangerous too. I mean, Relax could have got back for a second, but I mean, at least Grit confirms the kill, and now, though at 86%, you still lead when it comes down to the stocks. It's going to be incredibly hard for Greninja to try to break through the ice. I mean, when you're not on the roll, it's increasingly hard to try to beat out a Bowser Jr. Oh my!
Another huge catch, and the forward smash connecting as well. Relax at a huge deficit now. That counter not going to be able to land either. And Relax searching for an opening. That forward smash going to whiff as well. And Grit just really doing a fantastic job of putting the pressure on. There's nowhere for Relax to land every time he tries to go in. Grit's got some move ready. A forward smash, a forward tilt. Even that cart going to come through in the back hitbox of it. Catching Relax. It's 3-1 right now.
I mean, Grit's using the Bowser Jr. resources better than I've ever seen, especially with that parry coming in. It's 2-1 of these stocks, and I mean, Relax is just barely managing to get through, just not having that room. Look, the moment that they want to start moving in, break that corner, they're terrified if Grit's going to drop one of the Koopa bombs, drop a big hole, a lot of things, and the utility of it is just insane.
That's numerous times, too, that Grit has used that cart to kind of armor through something like a dash attack, like a back air. And Relax, already at 104%, just trying to find any ground here. Gets the up throw, but the up air follow-up doesn't happen.
It's getting incredibly close. Relax is now too scared to play that aggression, as we saw very early on in the match. Though they do have to play a bit more space, it's working out to a fair factor. However, I mean, Bowser Jr., the recovery can be insane, and Relax cannot risk going for any form of down smash or heavy kills.
Good dash attack. That's going to push Relax to the corner once again. Not able to pick up the bomb, though. Still manages to find it. That was a wild setup. The back air, though, is going to trade, and that's going to give the stock to Grit. So Grit with a 2-stock victory in game number 1.
Already, a pretty impressive showcase of just how to use the Bowser Jr. and especially what you're looking for in these matches. I don't think Greninja is the worst matchup against a character like Bowser Jr., but, you know, you can definitely understand where those situations can go wrong. I mean, not only do the bombs limit your own options, but rather Grit just gets away with so much, just like in the scenario, like catches you out, tries to go for the hammer, and I mean, the back air, it was just very clean. Relax was not at the health to be able to risk something like that. It's just highly unfortunate, and that's going to lead Quinn at least a little bit in the advantage. I feel as long as the Bowser Jr. is just freely able to kind of more play the game and have a second to use what utility they have, they get away with it for free.
I really think the momentum shifted right after that first stock, right? Grit came out swinging for the fences and got a bunch of damage right off the bat, and all of a sudden, Relax was pushed to the corner throughout the majority of that set, right? It felt like at least half the game he was off stage trying to find a way back on, and I feel like Bowser Jr. is a character that can really thrive when given the time to, you know, have that space to work with.
And say it better myself, and I mean, look on the bright side though, this is where Relax has the advantage. There are no high grounds to consistently jump on. This is very flat, and that's what Greninja works well on. We already see Grit isn't really able to go after as quickly as before or set up a bomb on the low ground and go on high just to try to limit the spacing. The Greninja just has the mobility and the utility to go up against the Bowser Jr.
A little bit more patient with his approach options as well, holding onto those snares, but that's a good bomb throw to get himself back to the ledge. And Grit, the quick turnaround, can't quite find the up B, is shielded there once. Good dash attack followed up with a forward air. And you're starting to see Relax, I think, starting to get into the groove a little bit more, starting to find some of those combos, but that was a big forward smash.
That's an unlucky moment. You walk into it, and, well, you're going to take a little bit more damage, though Grit's still at a considerable high percentage. I think Relax needs to take their time. Looking panicky, trying to confirm it as fast as possible has been the most punishing action we've seen so far. Like, just like that, you know, the block comes in and you get up smash. Now you're at similar health.
Love that counter from Relax. We didn't see him really use counter all game in game number 1, and the one time he did, it did not land there. Recognizes, hey, I'm probably going to get hit here by either something Grit is going to throw out or the Koopa. Let me just counter it and send him off the top of the screen.
You got to be really careful when it comes down to these counters, especially an opponent who can predict them will just be able to punish you anytime you try to hit the counter. So those are one of the moments where you got to feel proud at your sneaky little down B. So now, when it comes down to how you're going to push this, look at this beautiful aggression!
That was fantastic. Not only did Relax get the drag down, but he also recognized, hey, the Koopa's gonna hit me if I continue this combo. So he waits for Grit to get back up, pick up the bomb, and then continues it and sneaks underneath it with the side B. That was crazy.
it's just incredibly hard for Grit to play with the same style as before. I mean, eventually, you know, the back air, the front air, it's going to be able to take out Relax, but now you're coming back in, and it's almost similar to how we saw last round with, but on the opposite play, Grit is struggling to be able to set up anything.
Oh, he sweet spots the up smash too. Fantastic stuff, and Relax. That's a JV3 right there to answer back in game number 2.
I mean, it was an impressive start. I mean, it was an impressive comeback, I definitely would have to say. Surviving with those 2 stocks, you know, mirroring what Grit did to you before, I think those are one of the bright moments, especially being able to lay up that pressure. I don't think that's something you're going to be able to do on every map, but being able to do it on here, that's definitely what you're looking out for. But the big problem comes when it comes down to the next map pick. That can basically make or break whose playstyle works the best, and I don't know how much Relax can rely on luck like that.
We'll have to see where they go, and it's very interesting too. Again, this set in particular, I mean, just back and forth, like you said, the way they're playing right now, Relax did such a good job of adapting, like you said, that playstyle adjustment when you have nowhere to go vertically. Grit really struggled in approaching just in general, and Relax, I feel like he started to really settle in. All those combos that we didn't really see in game number 1, right? The up throw didn't connect into anything, the down tilts weren't there. They started to find their way here in game number 2.
Yeah, I just think that kind of goes down to the character's own abilities. I mean, Greninja isn't really someone who's as good at spacing comparably to that Bowser Jr. I mean, we already talked about just the idea of placing the tiny little Koopa bombs, but something even bigger is, you know, even the recovery is a threat in itself. It's not only a bomb, but the tiny hammer does extra damage, so Greninja has to basically just keep on that aggression. Don't let Quinn get any form of adjustment. Just gotta see, when it comes down to a point like this, big stage, it could be a problem for, well, mostly Relax.
Let's see how they do here. Again, the winner of this match in particular, or the winner of this game, earns an extra 2 points to their squad, plus however many stocks they have remaining, and Relax with a little bit of an early chance here, but he can't get the follow-up on the up smash.
It's so hard to connect. I mean, Greninja really wants to get you in the air, but the moment you land on that platform, it forces the recovery, and, well, Relax loses out on those opportunities. And Grit is now adapting in such an insane sense that the parries are becoming a little bit more common. That's the 3rd one that we've saw. Though they are looking to edge guard, they're getting away with so much that Relax can't.
And the catch on the jump, too. Relax is going to have to be tricky here with his recovery. Can't take the stage, though, in time, so it is going to be Grit taking the first stock off the board.
Very beautiful plan. No, unfortunately, Relax could have gotten back if it just the directory had been a little bit off, and that's the time you kind of wish Nintendo was in your favor. Now it's just a little bit of juggling. Relax is caught off guard, needs to try to make this spacing. I definitely feel this is where you have to, you know, not rely on those combos before, but force your opponent to make these mistakes just like that. They were caught in the ability, but, you know, you hesitate, you're not able to confirm it, and, well, it's only increasingly becoming a problem.
Good forward air to get Grit off stage, but again, Grit able to find a way back, and those side Bs back to stage have done so much work for him. That up B a little early, not quite punished by Relax either. It still feels like Relax is hunting for a way to, you know, even the stocks back up.
I mean, we're going back to the playstyle back on map 1, basically, where Relax doesn't want to really try and confirm these kills, more just get this chip damage and then eventually force it out once it's high enough. But that's solely because there are different stages. We're seeing how effective it is, and it's not really, you almost fall off the map, and I mean, Grit's at 134, that's not really what you want to happen. You gotta confirm it and start the next round of damage.
Even that up throw, not able to do it quite yet. Not quite sure what percentage that will kill at. It's got to be getting close, though, as Grit at 143, and Relax, again, having to work his way out of this corner. Nearly gets up smashed for it, but there's an up smash of his own, and it will kill off the side, but nonetheless, Relax is on the board.
I mean, Relax is still at 120.6, which is not good. That's not the damage that you want to have. when you take out your opponent's stock. It's one simple back air or a simple down smash. It takes you out, and we're back in the scenario of a 2-stock versus the 1-stock. Relax is finding these adaptations, but I think you have to go for these risky plays at this moment. There is nothing left you have to do rather than punish Grit.
Grit a full stock up right now and getting even more damage too. The other thing is that Grit, all this chip damage he is getting, just catching Relax's approaches, it's starting to really add up.
I definitely agree. Look at that, the juggle coming in. Relax at least is figuring out how to play this a lot cleaner. I mean, Grit is no longer getting away with free damage, and they're just making sure to try to edge guard each other just solely because Bowser Jr. is able to get away with so much that there's no reason why you don't try and force them off the stage and then punish it, especially with that counter. It's a beautiful example of just what you need to do when going up against an opponent who's able to zone you.
Relax knows he's got to play so careful right now, but that's the follow-up. That's a huge amount of damage, nearly taking the stock. Good recovery back to stage with a side B. Knocking back, and that back air, that's going to seal the deal, and Grit in Game 3 takes the set with a 2-stock victory.
Very unfortunate. I think Grit, compared to their opponent, was a bit more cautious, was a bit more hesitant, while Relax, unfortunately, was very much clicking buttons, which either forced them out the shield a little early, got them hit, or they were hitting a small basic combo, and, well, Grit's able to break through it with a special. That's kind of one of the moments where hesitance and patience is a virtue, though Relax still put on an amazing show. I just think Bowser Jr. on these types of stages, that's the worst type of opponent you can really go for, being a very close combat style character.
And on top of that, too, it felt like, both players had their own adaptations, right? But
yeah.
Grit, when he, was playing that kind of, a little bit more cautious playstyle, it almost felt somewhat, kind of reactive, where it says, okay, if Relax is going to go in, I know that, Relax wants to hold forward. He wants the combo. Yeah. That's Greninja's thing. And if Grit, has the time to react to that, then he can just punish accordingly. And that damage just really racks up over time. And I felt like that was a huge factor, especially, as this game went on, especially after that first stock, right? When Relax can't quite get the timing right to tech the stage and possibly make it back. Now he's got the lead. Now he can play with the lead, and that's where Grit thrives.
Definitely gotta agree, especially when both of these players, they come in relatively undefeated in their own right. So this is going to be Grit, with a smile, knowing that they're being able to be one of Marist's own best player, though I don't feel that's going to be the end. That's just a small showing, a taste. Now we have a much bigger roster to look at. Once again, more questions and ideas. There are other players who play these very similar zony characters on the side of Quinn, and I think that's what is kind of defining on what they prefer and what they like to play. I definitely feel these schools, they're not as, diverse in the playstyle because you're always screaming against each other, so you learn that, hey, this style just fits a little better, especially when going against someone who is playing this style. You get a little too used to it.
Yeah, I agree. And as we move forward here, we're getting the next few players locked in. Again, in this type of format, to kind of remind you of, or everyone, I should say, you in general, as how the point system goes. It is we do 5 best of 3s. You get points for however many stocks you have remaining at the end of each game, plus a bonus 2 points for winning your set. So all of those games ended in 2 stocks. Grit won, game 1 and 3 with 2 stocks apiece, plus they won the set with 2, which puts Quinnipiac up 6-2 over Marist. They lock in their next player, which is Mr. Purple, one of the bigger Ness players, I believe, here at the EGF.
Yeah.
And Marist, they get to now counterpick their player, and I believe it's Rograt being locked in here. Another Greninja for the Red Foxes.
Rograt, as a Greninja player, I don't know how much you really want to be going up against Ness. not because of just the zoning, but just because how annoying Ness can be. I feel these are very equal counteracts because both of the biggest weaknesses, the characters counter each other out, while Ness, yes, can give a lot of zoning and spacing, and you're going to be able to get away with a lot. PK Thunder, especially trying to get back on the stage, that's so easy to cancel out as a Greninja. You just get someone high up, you're going to be able to confirm those kills, but if you are not playing fast and you're not really being able to adjust to either spam or just simple tech, it can be the biggest problem in the world. I definitely feel it's one of those bigger risk factors when you're not going with a character who has better range. Even Greninja's own side B is relatively readable, and then just the water shuriken, that can just down B that, I'm pretty sure, and that adds to health. So you're going in. This is one big risk for, I think, both players, but a lot more when it comes to Rugrat.
Yeah, I think in general, too, just the way these two players play, Mr. Purple, I think he's one of the more adaptive Nesses, right? He doesn't come in with the game plan and just, enforce it. He's one of those ones that sees, okay, this is, game one went this way, so let me change this aspect. And that has really helped him along the lines here. He's 5-2 on the season so far, and he was one of these players that I think, was really impactful for Quinnipiac. There's always that question of, okay, if you do like a power ranking of 1 through 5, who do you put at 1 and who do you put at 5? Mr. Purple is almost always in one of these impactful spots where you could either grab a huge lead or ice a game with his playmaking, and so we'll have to see how he does against Rograt here.
Already, we're looking to see whose spacing is looking a bit better. This is a very nice neutral, at least. They both just want to get an idea of each other, but Mr. Purple is already just looking to kind of take on that aggression, is being the one who is engaging these fights, and it's already showing, at least when it comes down to the damage.
A little bit of an early lead. Rograt can't quite find any follow-up off of that back air. But Rograt, he's no slouch himself. He was here last year, one of the more experienced players on this roster. He's been here actually since year number 1. Been very good for this team so far, but like we said, at an early deficit. The last hitbox of that up B connecting, that's crazy. And the down smash also covering the ledge, and this is the feels bad moment for most characters, but he does manage to find a way back. And he clinked with the up smash too.
It's incredibly dangerous. It's just Rog just needs to be a little more punishing. I mean, this is one of the moments you need to abuse Ness's own issues. Though Mr. Purple is not relying too much on abilities, rather just knocking you off the stage and then setting them up in their own right. This is where Rograt kind of more gets a little bit uncomfortable and loses that stock, not knowing, hey, they're not trying to spam me at all.
That up air is going to take the stock, and 2 hits in there, and Rograt almost at 33. The sweet spot of the up smash again, not able to take the stock quite yet, and Rograt getting a little bit more damage from that side B, but also kind of knowing, when the combo is done, so he's able to weave in and out, but now you can tell he's kind of hunting for a kill, and he does find it, catching the landing with the forward smash.
Ness is very floaty, and so that means trajectory is very easy to notice, though that was a good parry. Rog basically has control when it goes down to the ground, and when it goes to the air, Mr. Purple, that's where they thrive. That's where we're noticing a lot more of how these players are going after when Rog is just forcing it. It's a pretty even stage, at least, for both sides.
I'm actually shocked that side B didn't hit, but Rograt unable to catch the landing with the dash attack. Still able to find a punish here. Another catching of that landing with the forward smash, but now up to the skies. Rograt has to find a way back down. Uses the neutral B. I don't think Mr. Purple was quite ready for it. But Rograt back into the corner again. Side B, able to knock Mr. Purple away. He does get back to stage and avoids the grab. That's huge.
This is incredibly even. I mean, Rog has been doing an amazing job. They're both kind of adapting to each other on the fly, and I think what's mattering most is just the fact that Mr. Purple's range is a tiny bit farther, so it's going to be harder for Greninja to get away with these hits. I mean, a simple hit can just shut you down, and the edge guarding is so good on Ness. It's unfortunate. You just gotta start getting that lead, figure out what you want to do.
I do like some of the ideas from Rograt there. He's used a couple of these side Bs, especially in terms of recovery, to try and knock Mr. Purple away. And even the angle on that up B to try and avoid the yo-yo was a right idea, but wrong execution. Either way, Mr. Purple with a big lead now. Look at all the percent that Rograt has taken here, already up to 85, and the aerial game, like you said, from Mr. Purple, just these short, quick attacks, things like short hop neutral air, and then quickly followed up by something like a forward air, have done a lot of damage so far.
And the unfortunate part is that, Rog is able to get that kill, but from the counter, yes, but now at 114, that's solely because Mr. Purple was playing very differently than their normal style, and I mean, that's a reason why. Just rack up the damage or stock ahead. It really doesn't matter when it comes down to points. If you're able, feeling confident in yourself and you're going to be able to win, well, you have that moment where you get the final kill and you're shining through. I think when it comes down to the Ness versus Greninja matchup, especially for these players, there are very noticeable ways to kind of break through it.
At back air sealing the stock away, and yeah, you can see right there, just kind of ran out of time. That neutral air not quite connecting, but either way, Mr. Purple taking game number 1. And one of the questions in my mind as we get ready for game number 2, you saw numerous times Rograt landed some combo starters, but actually in that replay you can see it was just the startup of that up air that connected. That's wild. If that came out frames later, he probably got around it. But on a combo character like Greninja, it feels like Rograt sometimes went for the extra combo. He wanted the extra damage, things like getting the second drag down but not able to actually land all of the hits to get that drag down, instead of, say, going for an up smash, taking the guaranteed damage. And is that a question, I guess, going into game number 2? Does he kind of flip that on its head and say, hey, I'm just gonna go for the smash attacks early, get that guaranteed damage? Or do you try and get a little bit more greedy and go for the extra damage to possibly put them at kill percent earlier?
Honestly, I say 100% you go with that aggressive playstyle. You need to be greedy sometimes, and as much as you want to be passive, respect the distance that Mr. Purple can reach. I mean, Mr. Purple's going to thrive off of time, and that's what Ness really just works off of. So I think Rog just needs to start moving in forward, maybe grab a little more often. Hey, you can even use your counter, your down smash. That can be so punishing, or help you escape some hits. That you should really be looking to just kind of minimize your own damage while, being able to force that Ness to not have any room to land, because that's when Ness starts thriving.
Yeah, and you saw it multiple times in that set as well, right? You talked about how there wasn't a whole lot of grabs or other ways to punish there for Rograt. It was mostly things like dash attack. He punished numerous times by throwing out a forward smash, which the damage is good, but like you said, sometimes you just need to get a little greedy. If you get a grab, if you get that dash attack, you could possibly have another combo and get a little bit more out of that forward smash. But that's the question for Rograt headed into game number 2 here on Pokemon Stadium. Remember, if Mr. Purple wins this match, he gets those bonus 2 points for winning his set.
I mean, this map is pretty even on both sides. We get to see the opportunity of how they're going after, though Rog does not have the distance when it goes to being able to move forward. This is just Mr. Purple more taking the time of when to hit, and Rog trying to figure out when is the best time for me to strike. Even in air, I am not safe. What is my game plan? And I definitely feel forcing your opponent off the map, that may be just what you need. Start grabbing, put them in an uncomfortable spot, and punish those PK Thunders.
Kind of running through, but not able to find a hit quite yet. Once the dash attack can't find the back air either, it will be Mr. Purple getting Rograt off stage. Down smash coming through, and that's a couple times now, I think, in a row that Rograt has used that early side B to try and recover, which is good to get around the yo-yo, but the up B clipped him, took his jump, and now Rograt finds himself down a stock.
it is just really hard for Rock to do anything. This is more of what we were talking about. Unfortunately, misses just that air smash, and that's going to just be very upsetting. But Purple's doing an amazing job, at least I think, when it comes down to distance playing. Never wanting to take these direct fights, rather force your opponent in the worst possible spot, especially with Greninja's recovery being one of the more mid types. It works out to the best degree.
Doc's even back up here and still looking for an opening. I will say Mr. Purple a couple of times has done that falling forward air, and he's done a very good job of, getting the kind of drag down of it into a grab. Hasn't always worked, but it's something that is definitely on Rograt's mind as he's got to find a way off this ledge. He does manage to do so with the get-up attack, but he's already at 116.
It's a lot of a risk, but you see, those are the moments. Those are the spots you need to be punishing, and it works to great factors. You force Mr. Purple to make a big mistake, and now you're tied on one stop.
I mean, I didn't even see that. I was watching Rograt to see if he would die, but I didn't notice that Mr. Purple also, ended up losing his stock. So last stock scenario here in game number 2, Rograt, a little bit of a disadvantage early thanks to that side B, but Mr. Purple, again, not really allowing Rograt any easy way in. Look at all the damage. Mr. Purple has yet to be touched this stock.
I get it. Purple's the color of royalty, and you truly got to show it. Making sure that nobody's on your level. These PK fires have been absolutely beautiful and distancing. Unfortunately, Rog now at 130. You have to just either play it hyper-aggressive as now or just defensive. Maximize these damage and make Mr. Purple go off the stage. Limit the resources.
All of that side B and the up smash is going to take it. Mr. Purple takes game 2 by a stock, and that's a lot of points on the board for the Bobcats.
Mr. Purple, I gotta say, that was a beautiful last setup combo, just making sure that Rog, look at that beautiful opportunity. Mr. Purple only has so much to be able to get back onto the stage, and those are one of the moments where you get away with being aggressive. Sure, you almost fell off, you almost got knocked and lost your stock, but you didn't, and that's the risk that goes with the game. When you are playing very patiently and you give Mr. Purple enough time, that's when Purple thrives and does stuff like this, where they stop you from even getting a chance to recover when you want to.
Yeah, Mr. Purple did a really good job of, it wasn't that, it was not so much give an inch, take a mile, but, when he was given an inch, he took a mile. He was able to find, a lot of that space and, like you said, just take advantage of it in the end. And although this set was a lot closer, that's a lot of points on the board. Not insurmountable by any means, but in a match that was so close last time to take the first 2 sets, you're really putting a lot of pressure on player number 3 here for Marist.
You're not wrong in any category. Though the points, they're not in the biggest difference so far. I mean, the third player just has to kind of step up to help the rest of Marks kind of get back into the game, not really feel like you're on the back foot, put yourself at that equal standing, especially with the rest of your player list. You have a lot of really interesting talent. So do you decide to pop one of those risky players in that may run something a little different than everyone is used to? Or, do you just go with people that you have continuously used that can hit or miss kind of breakout? That's going to be a lot on Marx's own mind, while Quinn, I feel, they still have a lot of comfortability deciding if they want to throw out a player who just doesn't, who has no experience, to get that little bit of practice, because, you can lose this round, sacrifice a couple points, and then come back in, and you'll still most likely be in the lead.
That is one of the questions, as the season kind of goes on. It's, you have a lot of teams have a roster of 6 or more, right? 6 is kind of like the minimum number of players. So when do you put in that one sub, right? Sometimes a person can't make it to a match, so you've got you're left with what you got. But these rosters, they've got numerous players down the line, and it's a question of when do you want to put in that talent, when do you want to give them their time in the spotlight. You always want to give a player their best chance to succeed, but Quinnipiac, for the most part, you really see what you get. It's mainly been the 5 guys and then the occasional, appearance from a player like Crystal Rose, who we haven't seen a lot of, but 0-2 on the season. We haven't seen a ton of Storm Giant either. You get the occasional 1 or 2 appearances, so this could be a potential spot for one of those players for the Bobcats to step in. But in a match where you're going up against, one of the favorites in the MAC conference, I feel like you go with what you know, and that's what they've done here. They're putting in Billy Shilly, who he's got a couple different characters, I remember right. Yes, it's the Pichu and the Pit. Also has played Pokemon trainer in the past, but Billy Shilly is one of these interesting players for Quinnipiac. I remember seeing him last season a couple of times. He was a big influence, going in numerous times as the anchor, going up against some of the toughest opponents from some of these other teams. And with a Ridley on screen, I gotta assume that's Zucchini, the captain of the Red Foxes, on the other side.
Oh, you just had to get the Zucchini matchup. But Pokemon Trainer, one of those better characters, I think, when you are looking to go up against an opponent you may not know. I mean, Zucchini is kind of a heavy hitter. I definitely feel the character represents that. But Billy being able to switch up on 3 different play styles, Zucchini is going to kind of struggle early on, especially now when it comes to adapting, not able to get these many hits on. Billy is kind of thriving at this moment.
Zucchini had an early deficit, but Zucchini is definitely one of the heavy hitters of the Marist lineup. We'll use that phrase a lot because there are just so many talented players, but Zucchini undefeated so far this season and the master of the heavy characters. Really one of the lighter in that cast that he's got under his belt, but backed away to the corner here, and with that Charizard on screen, this is looking dangerous. This character's got so many quick kill options. Zucchini's got to find a way back to stage.
Charizard's not necessarily one of the most heavy hitters, but Charizard does a lot of damage and has decent zoning. Though, map knowledge, that's basically one of those moments you shine. Though Zucchini is not able to live, and now this is going to reset how Billy goes in for these fights, using the Squirtle just for the early damage and then switching into Ivysaur, kind of get to mitigate it. Zucchini is now going to start getting an idea of how to go up against your opponent.
That side B from Billy Shilly, armoring through the back air of Zucchini, that was huge, because I feel like that back air would have killed on a light character like Squirtle, but Zucchini just can't quite find the spacing he needs. That flood hit. That second one did connect as well, so that's a second stock off the board for Zucchini. Billy Shilly on the verge of a 3-stock here.
I mean, I'll be surprised if that happens. Ridley, all Ridley just has to do is kind of just smell you, and that could be an instant KO. So to see Billy playing carefully, yet still keeping in that aggression, understands, beautiful mechanics. I mean, just getting that space out, using the Pokemon swapping system. It makes you look like an absolute G, and Zucchini doesn't know what to do against it.
Trapped in the corner once again, looking for any kind of opening, but Ivysaur just not going to give you the time. That up air seals the deal, and Billy Shilly coming out swinging with a 3-stock in game 1.
You all did great. As much as I definitely wanted to see that Pichu come out, because Pichu's a new character, a weird character in their own right, I definitely feel that the Pokemon Trainer was the better pick in every degree. I don't even think the Pit would have been a very nice matchup, because you're not going to be able to use every utility in the pocket, so it kind of goes, a bit lackluster. However, the Pokemon Trainer, you get away with so much, your playstyles is very different, and you have a character for every type of moment. Though the Squirtle looked to be favorable, it's one of those moments where you can say, yep, I'm gonna go to Charizard. I know they're going to try to get back on the stage, and I'm just gonna side smash them, get away with it for free, and then come back, switch out characters, my style. How are they gonna adapt against me?
That flood was really the turning point of the match, too, because you felt like, okay, Zucchini's down a stock, but he's got Billy Shilly at such a high percent. Squirtle's a light character. If he finds one hit, maybe, but then the flood hits, and there's just nowhere to go. Even above there, I'm surprised the second one actually caught him. That's a wild hitbox for the water going forward. And that's a feels bad moment for Zucchini, but Billy Shilly will take it. A 3-stock in game number 1, and it's not that 3-stocks are rare, but they are just really damaging, especially when you consider how the points are scored here. We see the switch over to the Bowser, And I like this one a little bit more in terms of being able to consistently take stocks, but this Squirtle, the way it was playing in game number 1, this is going to be a dangerous start.
Honestly, I think this is one of the more better picks. Squirtle's going to do well when it comes down to these resets. I mean, look at this beautiful juggling. Zucchini, though, all they have to do is activate Bowser's own super armor, and you get away with a lot. You may not have the best recovery, but this damage you do consistently is absolutely massive. You could punish Billy a lot of the times, but it's more of a risk if Billy's going to let you get those prime moments.
Good spacing around there, and Billy Shilly able to respond, though. And Zucchini off to an early deficit. That's a good side beat. Those aren't going to kill quite yet. Billy Shilly stalling out. Good tether cancel into the forward air. And Billy Shilly once again keeping Zucchini to the corner.
I'm worried about Zucchini throwing so many jumps like this. You're going up against an Ivysaur who has good range, and now with the Charizard, oh, that doesn't get any better! It is only going to get increasingly difficult, though you can confirm these kills a lot easier. It's more mattering that you're not getting these chances to hit Billy more often than not. It's just the reliance on Bowser having high damage.
Good up smash there from Zucchini to answer back the stocks. That's a down B that we rarely see, and it does end up connecting. Billy Shilly will be able to make it back to stage, although albeit dangerously. And the switch back to Ivysaur now, but now the percentage is really flipped on its head since the answer of that first stock. Billy Shilly up to 87, but here's a good combo chance. Trying to keep him up in the air, trying to catch a landing, finds him there. And that's all it really is. Another forward air coming through. And Billy Shilly, I love the mix-up with these tethers, but it is Zucchini still in the lead.
I have to agree, this is where Billy is getting a bit more uncomfortable on how this matchup is supposed to go. Bowser does ridiculous amounts of damage doing nothing, while Zucchini has to put in that work, has to be going in for these risky plays, or else you do get down smashed, and now you're at a disadvantage. You're no longer leading this series. Zucchini seems to have adapted cleanly, and the Bowser just gets away with, looking to up B just onto the bottom of the stage. It's more Billy needing to kind of confirm these hits, respect Bowser a lot more, and utilize. I think Ivysaur is definitely the play to go.
Good air dodge around it, and we'll have to see Zucchini trying to survive at this high of a percent. Feels like he's working on borrowed time, and he is. That up B connects. So things are back to even on the last stock here, but 40% early here on Billy Shilly. That's a down air, not going to be followed up by the up smash, and Billy Shilly's got him off stage. Another good back air, follows up with the forward air, and Billy Shilly again. What a good parry, like you said. Keeping him to the corner still. That up B, a little bit greedy.
It is definitely getting a little risky as we see Billy is finally realizing that Zucchini is just waiting for him to attack, and then they just block. And, that's a pretty set, obvious plan. Zucchini now getting punished, and what a hitbox! Knocking you out of the stage, stopping before you even get that comeback. It's still entirely, not one-sided necessarily, but, the momentum kept switching on both like a small river. I just gotta say, Billy stands out to me as one of these players who, utilizes these characters to the fullest degree.
Very good job, and again, that forward smash too. Look at the distance that it covers, but also just catching the forward air, right? The forward air comes through, doesn't connect, and even before Zucchini can grab the ledge, that forward air is still connected. By the way, Billy Shilly, although he seemed lost for the middle portion of this game, he had a lot of momentum, I feel like, after that first stock.
I definitely, that's honestly a great point, too. I mean, just some of the examples of Billy getting a little bit more style points on Zucchini definitely builds up that confidence, gives you more of a reason. And when you force a character switch off when somebody is known for a specific style, that shows, you're forcing them to have to change things up, force them to have to think a little differently. Marist, when it goes into the next match, I think they're starting to figure out how their opponents, prefer to go. And yet Quinn they show up at every point and they kind of have the edge. And I don't know whether that's just character choice or their own player mechanics. It's still, either way, it's honestly impressive.
The veteran experience of this lineup coming through in spades for Quinnipiac. Even Grit, too, one of the new additions to this Quinnipiac roster, showed up big in that very first set. And so Quinnipiac, they've got the big lead here, 16-2. Again, Marist can still technically come back, but we're in practically miracle territory here. It is a 14-point lead. The most you can get out of a set is 8. So you're asking for at least one of your players to get double 3 stocks. And against Quinnipiac, good luck, honestly, because they play everyone close. So we'll have to see who the players are going to be locking in here. Looks like Soul Cake is going to get locked in for Quinnipiac, another veteran to this roster. Soul Cake's got, he's one of the more experienced players, as I've mentioned, but we've seen him play mostly Sonic and Joker occasionally throughout his time here on EGF. 4-1 so far this season, and one of these players that I think adds a lot to that lineup. We talked about the numerous play styles that both of these teams kind of have. Characters like Joker and Sonic, I feel like you get a lot more of that combo heavy play style out of Soul Cake.
Yeah, that gets me incredibly excited because I think this is less of a big brain and more characters who are heavily reliant on your game knowledge and matchups. I mean, Joker has one of the best recoveries in the game, has a counter, its own down B, can power through heavy hitting moves. So you get away with a lot and you're able to set up for beautiful down smashes, beautiful air hits. And especially with Sonic as a character, just as that kind of backup, in case. I think Sonic mirrors in good zones. They're just about, understanding how your character plays, moving in and punishing your opponent. That gets me really excited to see. I definitely feel Soul Cake is one of my more favorite players to see from Quinn. So, I get a little bit of a big smile moment for myself.
Looks like the other side of that coin, Marist is going to be sending in, I believe it's Randomain coming in. Randomain, we haven't seen him this season, but he was in a lot of the past 2 seasons. I believe it was majority Pac-Man was his go-to character. And, again, haven't seen him this season, so maybe he's opted to pick up one of those DLCs that we've seen on a couple of other teams, but that remains to be seen. Either way, Randomain brings a lot of experience to this Marist roster that's got a lot of new faces, and we'll have to see how he does here matched up against Soul Cake.
Pac-Man, of all characters, is very a mixed feeling type character. I don't think Pac-Man is bad necessarily, but I think Pac-Man, everything is about setup and everything is about planning, and I feel when you're going up against experienced players who are used to kind of going up against things that are a lot more rushy or even a lot more pokey, something like Pac-Man, which is more in the middle, is almost like a breath of fresh air when you're kind of going up against that. I definitely would say, especially out of the DLC characters, Pyra Mithra would be a really good matchup. Just their high damage and large amounts of range, you're able to get away with so much. And hey, if you're feeling a little classy, you go with Sora. I've been a massive fan of Sora ever since they came out, and I definitely feel they are a top tier character when playing up against, meaning that you're gonna have a lot of zoning. It's similar to how Pac-Man's fundamentals are, though a part of me feels we will be surprised. I don't think we're going to be expecting what they have for us. Rando may have an entirely different plan.
I mean, his name is Randomain. He might just decide, hey, it's time to hit the random button and see what comes up. I would not be shocked. But we should mention, as I look through these cast of characters again for both of these schools, it's interesting to note that a lot of these players haven't actually opted to play a lot of the DLC characters. They've kind of stuck with their tried and true through most of these games. I mean, you look at just from what we've seen, right? Greninja is mostly Bowser and Ridley with that switch. You see on the other side, you see Ness, PT, Bowser Jr. So not a lot of that DLC option, and there's something to be said about that because it means that you've got time, put into this character, right? They've been here since day one. There's no kind of mix up with these new DLC characters coming through. You see what you get.
Yeah, also, a kind of fair idea is that if you, let's say, play the last Smash Bros, for the Wii U, some of these characters transfer over, are gonna feel comfortable without too much of an issue, so maybe that's one idea that goes with it. Though I just feel it's because these characters are very good, or they're very fun to play. I definitely feel when it comes down to ideas such as, like, Ridley's not, I wouldn't say a too top tier character, kind of more in that middle ground, but a little more, I'd say, I think is really good. The DLCs can be very risky. You're going into a character who has an entirely different playstyle. When you've played something for so long, it just has that sustainability. And as well, honestly, you just might be better with it. You don't want to try and ruin what you're already really good at.
Yeah, when you start to learn all these different types of playstyles, sometimes it can kind of mess with your tried and true, right? If you've got, one character that you just this is your go-to guy, and then all of a sudden, you try these other mechanics out with other characters, it can sometimes mess with your fundamentals, but, it's fun to see, the full cast used, and Marist, they've got, their whole lineup of characters are, a mixed bag of different play styles, which I think has played to their advantage in the past, but here, credit where credit's due. Quinnipiac came ready to play today, right? Not only did Grit play fantastic in the battle of the rookies of round one, but then you look at the veterans of this roster, right? Billy Shilly coming in clutch. That time against some of the more experienced players in that fifth slot really coming through. You still have players like we haven't seen, Baco play yet, and he's a huge name on this roster. Derpa Lerpa, we haven't seen him play yet either, but even Mr. Purple, 5-2 on the season, and this Ness, it's been playing fantastic. Even on the losses, he's mitigating a lot of the points, and he's only taken 2 losses this year.
Wow, that's something that I think is, like, much bigger than we can really point out, especially when it comes down to how they're gonna work. Though, look at this, a Lucario, no Pac-Man. We're looking at a character who does a lot of damage the more you get hit, as well as Lucario is such a good counter to Sonic, just with how heavy he can be at times.
And I think this is the first Lucario we've seen here at the EGF. I don't think anyone has picked this character throughout the first 2 seasons at least, and definitely not in the spring split. So fun to see a new character show up here, and a little bit of a deficit early, but this is where things start to get scary, right? That rage starts to build up, that aura starts to do more, and Soulcake has to play a little bit more careful as this match goes on.
There's definitely a reason to. Taking that damage is a risk onto itself, and Sonic, while not good at confirming these kills, is so good at these chip damage moments and forcing you to make these mistakes. The simple tracking homing bee does so much damage. Well, not damage over, singular, but over time. And it's one of those moments where Rando Main gets punished. You have to play fast against the Sonic. You don't want to be too slow.
I'm actually kind of surprised that up smash did end up catching, but either way, Soulcake will take it. He's up a stock. And like you said, you gotta play fast against the Sonic. You can't afford to play slow, otherwise this character will run all over you. That up B though, the drift, not enough to get back to stage. You might have been worrying about possibly getting clipped underneath it, so either way, Soulcake now up 2 stocks. But Lucario, if there's any character that you fear a comeback from, I feel like Lucario is certainly in that category.
Honestly, I want to agree, but I really can't say that I can. And that's solely because, Lucario has a lot of stun, like those moments. Would have got grabbed if it was a little closer, but it's really hard to confirm things if you're not at high damage, and well, at 27-2. Soulcake may be able to lose a stock, but then you have to make that difficult train wreck back, and it's not worth it.
I like the idea there from Randomay to use that neutral B as a setup into an attack, because that neutral B does have a hitbox on it, unlike Mewtwo's, but Soulcake just opting for damage, almost gets that forward air as well. And that back air does connect, so stock number 1 off the board, and Random Man, a lot of work to be done here.
You know, maybe this is Pokemon Legends versus the new Sonic game that's coming out. Everybody's saying they look very similar. I guess this is the idea that goes behind, though. Random Main is looking to play a lot more aggressively. We're seeing a lot of these setups, and I've been loving the usage of the Aura Sphere, just being kind of that defense, but, I mean, you're not getting too much room to use it. Just force Soul to walk into you, and then, you know, go for the blocks. You're able to go for the grabs. Don't give those moments, because you may get... Oh, that was really close.
Wanted the hitbox on that down air, but not quite able to find it. Does find the neutral B. That up smash not going to connect either, but that is going to get the kill. That's the side B. Gets the command grab of it. And so Random Man, he's got Soul Cake down to the last stock here, but at 143, he's got to play careful.
You know, I said that I didn't really expect it. I thought it was a little too risky, but you were 100% right. The Lucario is doing so much, and especially at this type of damage, Soul Cake can't even play forward anymore. Has to go for these grabs and has to go for these slams if you want a chance to be able to bring it in. That's just a little unfortunate that the hitbox is a lot more forward. Rando still showed off an impressive first match.
So that is game number 1 done and dusted. Soul Cake able to stop the comeback there from Random Main. 1 stock victory, put another point on the board for the Bobcats, but Soul Cake, you know, what felt like a commanding lead slowly started to dissipate, and that is kind of the danger of Lucario, but it did feel like Random Main was starting to kind of settle in, right? Stock 1 looked very shaky, and then obviously stock 2 was, you know, the missed up B, but stock number 3, he really started to find a few of those openings, and it makes me curious to see how game number 2 is going to go from start to finish.
Honestly, I wouldn't be too surprised if Lucario is a character they've only recently picked up, just because it almost felt like they were trying to figure out the small things about how Lucario works, or what they can get away with during the match. And I mean, that's not necessarily wrong, but it is those moments where only late into the game, you're finally going to find what works best for you. Though, Random Main, if they decide to stick onto this Lucario, I think Soul Cake can't get away with what they did before. You are going to die a lot more often, and Rando is going to, I think, get away with a lot more, especially with the overusage of the Aura Spheres at first, but then like the lower usage, figuring out like, hey, this could be used instead of stopping my opponent from walking into me to just get that bit of massive damage.
It seems like a couple of times in this set, Random Main was able to find a few of his openings just by Soul Cake dropping his shield, right? And Sonic is one of those characters, right, that you have those chances to, oh my, there's the Pac-Man. Forget the point I was going to make. It was going to be something about Lucario and stocks, but now the Pac-Man comes out, and yeah, this I feel like is more of the tried and true of what Random Main has in his pocket.
I mean, it's as I said, I feel Pac-Man is very much a setup character, and I feel Sonic can get away with a lot going up against, though Rando has already shown to be extremely surprising in these matchups, and, well, is already leading when it comes down to the damage. Soul Cake more or less has to figure out, what am I prioritizing going up against this Pac-Man, just cause, you know, being able to bring up whatever item I want to throw at my opponent, and the Fire Hydrant, it is stressful to try to break.
And it's also, I think, going to mess up a lot of Sonic's side Bs, too. That's how Sonic likes to approach a lot. And with that in the way, you have to worry about, okay, is it going to shoot the water? Is it going to mess with my angles?
Oh!
But, oh my goodness, I love that. That's a great setup from Random Main, saying, hey, this trampoline's going to catch everything down low. He has to recover high, and he throws out the forward smash and catches the jump.
That's what Pac-Man strives on at the best times, and I mean, Soul Cake does not want to go up against it. Every hit is going into a random object, the Fire Hydrant, and it seems that Soul Cake is getting more frustrated on it, is looking for these zones, though I don't believe that is in a good spot. Wait, but you help your opponent get back up? That's unfortunate.
Planned or not, Random Main just got away with one right there. Did not tech the stage, but still fell into his trampoline. Misses a down throw. I thought he'd go for the upside, but he does read the roll in and finds the forward smash. So back to even stocks here.
as much as it's going into evens, Rando is looking to kind of space it more out, and that's solely just since Soulcake isn't trying to run in anymore and be as annoying as possible, rather is waiting to see what resources Rando is going to use and then punish it relative to that. I mean, the fire hydrant's out, but they're not prioritizing breaking it. They're waiting for it to go down, and then they start trying to punish.
Good dash attack to get Randomain off stage. Like the angle from that side B, but it's well read by Soulcake. And that snap to the ledge, that was huge too. It's the grab, up throw, up air. Ooh, that fire hydrant kind of saving Randomain there.
It's still getting incredibly dangerous for both sides. Rando isn't getting any room to set things up. And I mean, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to make it back no matter how. Wait! Oh, just barely!
He still has his up B. I was worried that that trampoline wouldn't respawn for him, but the forward smash comes through. And Soulcake gonna stall out. Lands the back air too. That did 17. That's a good chunk of damage right there. And now Randomain, he's gotta find a way to make a play here to get this back to even, and Soulcake not gonna make it any easier for him.
I think Rando is definitely relying too much on Soulcake to walk into the damage. I mean, that was like the 6th time Rando just sets up the side smash, and that's the first time Soulcake just ends up walking into it, and that's not really working when you're, you know, being this setup type character. Definitely got to put in those spaces. You got to use your throwing items a little more cautiously rather than just throwing them to see what happens.
Neutral B again, racking up the percentage, and it is in Soulcake's favor. He has just found so many of these forward smashes. That neutral B not going to connect. Gets around the trampoline too, so that setup's not going to work either. And Soulcake just doing a great job of picking and choosing his spots to weave.
It is still dangerously careful. I mean, 50%, that's enough to get stocked at. And Rando has to be extremely careful. Though you're able to get up, which is the bright side, one good hit from Sonic is what kills you. So yeah, I definitely feel it's a more passive playstyle, but Pac-Man works best with it, as long as you don't trade in hits.
That's an unfortunate one, but either way, Soulcake with the victory here over Randomain, and that seals the deal for the Bobcats. They will take the victory over the Red Foxes. That being said, we will still play out the 5th set of this match, because down the line we've got tiebreakers to be played out. Round differential and point differential are the tiebreakers, so for Marist now it's just about kind of cutting your losses. This last match is about, you know, not allowing that point differential or round differential to get too out of hand, but a well-earned victory for Quinnipiac.
You know, I don't think it's very common, at least when it comes down to the collegiate scene, to, you know, not take this last match seriously. Sometimes I would say it's the most important match, just because you can't predict how your opponents are doing. You can't predict what the other colleges, you know, are managing to bring out of their pockets. So just being able to secure an extra map, meaning that in the future you may be 1 point over someone and secured your spot in the playoff, that's what matters the most. And I wouldn't be too surprised to just see these players try their best, not go with any type of memes.
Yeah, and I mean, credit where credit's due here too for Soulcake to ice this match. Time and time again, he was able to read Randomain's movement and find that forward smash. And I mean, that's the Sonic special, right? That's the move that I feel like he's going to kill with the most often, especially just, you know, in neutral. But Randomain, for a character that's got a lot of setup, you saw a lot of, you know, right ideas, but just kind of wrong execution on it.
Yeah, I mean, very early on in Pac-Man, I definitely saw, like, Rando incredibly impressive, especially with the trampoline setup. Those are one of the moments where, you know, that's why I love Pac-Man. But it's about hitting those consistently. That always makes me feel Pac-Man is not one of the stronger characters when it comes down to Smash, though. We're getting a relative equal type of matchup. Especially, it's just a little button check. We just wanted to give you a little teaser on it. Samus versus a Mega Man. That's, you know?
That's a different one. I'm actually not sure who those players are quite yet, because to my knowledge, neither of these teams have a Mega Man or Dark Samus in their roster. So I'm interested to see if that was just a random selection or if they're actually going to ride those out. I mean, we've seen a couple times, in a scenario like this. I believe last split, it was actually, I want to say it was St. John's. They had one or two players go with kind of, not their typical style at all, right? I believe there was a Greninja that ended up going for a Samus instead, or another Rushdown picking this projectile heavy character. So just the complete opposite of what you would expect. So we are getting the names of those players now, and it is some of the players that we haven't seen a lot of. So I'm interested to see what they bring to the stage here. For Quinnipiac, TJ Buff coming in. He's only played one other match so far this split. He was 1-0. I believe he earned 5 points in that victory, if I remember correctly. And on the other side, for Marist, it is Green making, I believe, his first appearance in the EGF. So two players, not a lot of experience, but two very different characters that we get to talk about.
It's not very often that we see this type of matchup, and especially in a scenario like this. As serious as it can be, this is going to be a little bit more fun. They're both very similar in playstyle, but I mean, Mega Man gives you a lot more room just to be dirty, especially when it comes to your own side smashes, your own little small reference abilities, and my favorite thing, the Leaf Shield.
Two characters that I feel like rely heavily on their projectiles to do a lot of damage, but also have their own combos as well. And you can see right now, TJ Buff at a little bit of a deficit for the moment. Green, good follow-ups, but that down air actually stuffing out Green's next option. And you're gonna see a lot of this kind of play in neutral, right? Just numerous I'm not quite sure. I want to say jabs. It's not quite jabs. But either way, just back and forth with the projectile play.
Like they're hitting each other with small pellets at times, just trying to see what's going to happen. And it's almost quite interesting because Green isn't looking to play more forward. I mean, Samus, unlike Mega Man, has moves that benefits in close quarters. And yet, Mega Man is just playing more back. Green is kind of playing to the Mega Man strength, and it's showing when it comes down to the health bar of both of these players.
TJ Buff definitely has the quicker projectiles with those pellets, but the damage for Green is there if he can, find a way through. But speaking of damage, that forward smash, just the edge of it connecting, and Green will lose his first stock.
That's not going to be feeling too great, though you do get a bit more time. I feel this is where Green needs to acknowledge this is the time to go sicko mode, where Mega Man, the little pellets at most, the little neutral A's, they're not doing too much, and they're not what's annoying. It's the rest of the abilities, so if you just get a moment, get a good smash or grab, Mega Man just gets no value.
No follow through on that down throw. Wanted the forward air, but there's a back air from Green, seemingly out of nowhere, evening up the stocks.
Quite honestly, it's now working in favor of the Mega Man solely just because the neutral fight continues to go off, and since Green died first, and then they returned back it, and everybody's getting hit with chip damage, well, TJ Buff, they get the kind of better end of the stick, especially when Green isn't getting as much room as they want. It's falling down, but they're still being able to bring it back at times, and I feel that's where you need to play to Samus' own strength. Be as annoying as you want and limit the Mega Man's options. Mega Man's doing it to you. Why not trade it similarly?
I agree, and that seems to be the struggle right now. Green does find his way in with that up air, but TJ Buff quickly getting out of it too. And again, with all this chip damage, you gotta make the one or two openings you find really count. And Green doing that now, gets that little bit of a charge up, but no, doesn't find it. Down smash coming through in the end for TJ Buff. And Green actually able to answer immediately, finding another strong hit of that back air, and it's back to dead even.
Not planned, purely calculated. That's how I see it. And well, now it's looking like the aggression is there. Green, now knowing what they want to do, is managing to force Mega Man into that worst spot. Unfortunately, that jump is not as good, in the dog falling to the abyss. That means Samus is going to win, and thankfully so, to that 0 point, no risk, no sweat, though I do feel, the bad part about it was just how close it was. You're not going to feel secure to go up against this matchup and like, I can definitely win this. It's just more of, I need to figure out how to solidify the victory.
Green taking that first game does get a point back on the board for Marist, but it did feel like TJ Buff was kind of in control of the pace of that matchup through most of it. When Green found his one opening, though, you saw those up airs, those dash attacks, they do a lot of damage, and I don't know if Mega Man is the lightest character or not, but it certainly feels impactful every time Green gets it.
I would give it to just the utility of Mega Man and what they're able to get done in such a short span. You can try walking into your opponent. You can try and, pump in some damage, but, I mean, it's much better to get the utility of your items. That's what the pellets are really meant for. While Samus, the damage is very obvious. The rockets are pretty noticeable, so it's much... I think easier to kind of point that out, though. On Final Destination, this is just the worst type of matchup for both of these players. Everything is so open. It's so easy to get hit.
Yeah, this is a stage that we talked about a lot in the fall split as, it feels like a double-edged sword. The second you're in disadvantage, you're going to be there for a while because, like you said, there's just nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run to. All these hits, you're just going to have to shield all of them and then hope that you can find a way to punish afterward. And so far, things even. I like the idea of that charge shot too, the dash attack follow-up as well. That up air, gonna get a little bit more damage as well. And TJ Buff struggling to find a way out of the corner for now, nearly jumping into the last hit of that up smash. And now you can see Green throwing out those back airs. He wants that strong hit once more. That up B also will kill at some point, but not quite yet. TJ Buff still surviving.
Incredibly impressed the Mega Man chances of just being able to survive, but this is where Mega Man kind of zoning needs to be put into play. You're not going to be doing as much damage as the Samus, so limiting just those options is I think what the strong suit truly thrives in. Just spacing out. Look at that. Samus just unable to even land onto the ground to try to hit you. It's very unfortunate, but that's just what works.
Ooh, the dash attack actually fighting through, caught the saw blade, and so that dash attack will kill. Stock number 1 off the board of TJ Buff. That back air gonna knock Green away once more. And TJ Buff, when he was able to find his stocks, it was through, just kind of those oppressive projectiles. Ended up taking it with a forward smash and eventually that down smash too on that second stock. Does manage to find a grab here, but that back throw will not be able to do it quite yet. And Green stalling out and surviving here, looking for a chance at some more chip damage.
Green is not going to be looking to try to live for as long as possible. I'd rather see the damage come in, those risky plays, especially with that low dynamite in, just not going to be working well. But still, at the low damage that TJ Buff is at, it's relatively still equal, and the neutral is only going to be getting more difficult with it being so open.
Good saw blade there, and again back to neutral. Charge shot lands. Those up tilts from Green. He's thrown out a couple of those this match, and they were working through at least the early portions of this game. Not so much there. Good dash attack follow-up as well. That move is going to do wonders for him as this set goes on, but TJ Buff just still able to kind of hold on to the pace of this match. And Green, like you said, if he wants to, he doesn't want to slow down the pace of this match, but TJ Buff really not making it easy for him to get in the first place.
Yeah, and I think it shows. I mean, how often are we going to be sitting here looking at both of these teams still with 2 stocks? I definitely feel this is where even now they're just getting a sense of how each other plays and what to do to counteract it. But though TJ is struggling the most here, and I feel that is what Mega Man unfortunately is always on the back foot with, and Samus just one of those characters who is going to win these duels like that.
That's a good combo there from TJ Buff, and that down air is gonna land the spike hitbox too, so Green losing his stock there, and that's a huge turnaround from TJ Buff. I mean, aside from the last maybe 15-ish seconds, I feel like TJ Buff hadn't been hit in a minute. He was at a percent differential for a good portion of time, but Green with the edge guard there, falling forward there off stage, covering TJ's ability, to recover, and things are back to even.
It's almost just like the first match back to the single stock, though. It looks like Green isn't really able to move forward. TJ Buff is continuing at least to limit these options, making sure that Saw Blade is the most impactful item in the game, which is not something you often see, though. Green not being on the back foot, it doesn't always seem like the problem. I think that's what Samus works better with.
And you see a lot of times Mega Man, throw that Saw Blade downward and try and pick it up, right, to kind of mix it up or use it as a possible combo item. But TJ Buff is just saying, hey, if I just keep throwing projectiles forward, it's just gonna make life miserable for Green, right, to try and get in through it. So Green has to find a way to respond here. Good shield on that neutral B too, and the damage just continues to rack up here for Green.
It's just not looking any better. I mean, you're not finding any room, especially with that grab. You're knocked into the air. I definitely feel that initial down smash just kind of burns down the mentals, switches the momentum, and you don't look as strong anymore.
Green at 134. A little bit more damage. That up smash is going to connect, and TJ Buff answers back here in game number 2. And we'll have a game 3 on our hands.
I mean, it's just as we said, that was way too close for comfort. I mean, thankfully, on the first one, Green was able to win 0 to nothing, 1 stock, 0 health. So you at least say, hey, that worked. That looked something nice. Yay. But then, you didn't win by a second stock, meaning that it was incredibly close. And as TJ's shown, you can bring it back no matter what. The styles, they work to differing factors, and I'm very happy to say that, TJ Buff is showing that there is still so much room in this match, especially going into the last round. These players are most likely sticking onto these characters, so I definitely feel this is kind of the antithesis of this is what I run, this is how I play. Your opponent is 100% going to know how to counter it.
Love that spike from TJ Buff, too. Headed into game number 3, Green does get the stage counter pick here. Is there any stage that would give Green maybe a little bit more of an advantage? Like you said, if TJ Buff is in control of the pace of neutral because he's just got the quicker projectiles, he's got a little bit more utility, and Green wants to try and end this earlier, is there a certain stage that would benefit him for that?
Oh, that's a really hard, I think, kind of question, solely since the map types of how you go, they don't impact too much. I definitely think you're more looking on what that stage could be. And I feel... Wow, I really had to think on that question because these characters play so similarly that that it's hard to say, like, oh, one character is going to work better on here. I definitely feel that whatever map they go on, both of them are going to struggle. This is kind of just more of a player matchup of figuring out how your opponent goes and playing against it to the best of your ability. These characters are way too similar to say that a map like Yoshi's or Small, you work better on.
Right, because and it's like you said, they do a lot of the same things, just differently, and I think, going into game number 3, like you said, if Green is going to have to find a way in to do more damage, to get those kills early, I think you might say a smaller stage, but again, you've got such quick projectiles out of Mega Man. I think you do outspace him with maybe some tilts, but TJ Buff has just not allowed you an easy way in for you to use those tilts. We've seen up tilt used a couple of times to try and catch TJ Buff jumping, but the range just isn't there.
If there's any moment to start punishing your opponent and reading them like your US literature, it is now, of all things. And still, though, I feel that they've returned back into this neutral of just trying to get a sense of how each other are playing. Though I do find it more interesting that, we're not seeing Green really use the abilities of Samus too often, more of just trying to break the distance and use the kind of recovery ability as the damage dealer, but that's not really working well when your opponent isn't walking into you.
The other thing, too, and I haven't kept a great track of this, but it feels like TJ Buff, the projectiles are all being mixed up, right? It's not a set pattern, right? There's no, okay, I'm going to, shoot pellets, then I'm going to use the saw blade, then I'm going to use the leaf. It's constantly mixing up those projectiles, so you're never sure which projectile he's going to throw out next. That Green has to worry about here a lot in this, third match.
You're 100% right. A little bit of a questionable decision going with the menacing walk there. Luckily, you just don't get knocked out very hard. They are still looking to smash each other out of this, the name of the game, but I don't know how well Green is going to be able to get away with it just because you are not setting up your character to be able to use their abilities to their finest, while counterly, Mega Man is all about using the abilities, and TJ Buff is doing them excellently.
I liked the idea there from Green, the neutral get up into the forward tilt, but the range just not quite there, and TJ Buff was able to punish that up B, not going to connect either. He is able to fade around that grab somehow, and so Green will be able to get back to stage, but still eating some chip damage here, and TJ Buff, the longer the stock goes on, the better, but he does get hit by the last hit of that forward air, so he will lose his stock, and things are, again, back to even between these two.
I always find it, I think it's almost a little bit funny of how even these players are when it comes down to the trading. They both really don't want to go for these risks, but I feel the Mega Man is getting the better end of it, and maybe that's solely just because Mega Man has more versatility into these fights. Samus is a lot straightforward, and the attacks are very easy to predict against. I think that's just more of the struggle of Green trying to figure out what do I do against the Mega Man.
Find the up air underneath that leaf shield, but answered right back. And that bounce away, actually, I believe, helping Green for the moment. These dash attacks, again, coming in clutch for Green. Got a little bit of almost armor on it to fight through a projectile or a saw blade, even if he catches it. And it does kill at high percents, and it's how he's been able to break through neutral a lot. But he's got to be very careful about the spacing of it, because if it misses, TJ Buff is all over it.
TJ Buff is always looking to just punish these moments, or I think at least looking for the up smash, solely just because it's one of the coolest in the game. Looking for that down smash, it's as well as one of the most punishing in the games. But Green is able to get back. Green is looking to play more cautiously. However, that shield does not last forever, and you're not going to be able to hit your opponent if you're prioritizing looking to block.
Gotta be careful here. Dash attack will connect. Up there, also stopping TJ Buff from landing. And he's kept him in the air for a little bit now. That back air not going to land. Last hit of that down air is able to connect. And both
the resource
playing at dangerous percents here.
It almost feels so close, but that's just where TJ Buff is getting the advantage, has more versatility when it comes down to these options, at least when it comes to hitting. But I mean, very quickly, it is going to return to that neutral if TJ Buff doesn't, adapt around, finally figure out how they want to change that playstyle. Green is always looking to even the score up and has already shown to be able to, bring in the momentum back in their favor. However, with it lasting so long as it is, Green is forcing, attempting, doing everything in their power to make you play on the edge, and yet Mega Man has not been playing to that.
Green's got a decent idea here of using that up B to kind of break through, because every time TJ Buff is using those projectiles to approach, he'll just say, okay, if I shield it all and he's on top of me, I can use that up B. But the problem is, it just is not going to kill, and the longer this Mega Man stays alive, the more and more damage Green is going to take. He's got to find a better way to punish, and it's just not there right now.
It is definitely more on the questionable side of just how it works. And I mean, eventually TJ Buff falls out, but it was at high percentage, and comparably to 69, I think Mega Man gets away with a lot more. Green, you gotta be looking for these hits. You've gotta just be looking, because Mega Man is looking to steal your power-ups.
Oh, that clipped. Bad spot here for Green, and that spike is gonna come through. TJ Buff finishing this match out in style. Quinnipiac taking all 5 sets, and they get the victory over Marist.
I mean, I gotta say, you know, abusing the fact that Samus is very, I guess, predictable leaning ways. I forget the exact word for it at times, but the trajectory of what Samus goes is very predictable, and so, you know, an ability like that, it's pixel perfect. You just get away with it, and I think that's what TJ Buff was really looking for throughout this match. And I gotta say that though we don't see Mega Man be used very often, I think that's one of the more better showings of the character, especially against Samus, who's always so similar, and it makes that fight very uncomfortable.
There are very few Mega Man in the EGF, but the ones that are here are very good, and TJ Buff looking to be added to that list as he gets the win over Green here. I think one of the things, now that I think about it, for Green, I don't think we saw a single Zair or tether to ledge, and I know it can be a little bit dangerous, but you know, if you're looking to try and find an easy way to deal with that range, it could be an option. Either way, TJ Buff able to, you know, take advantage of the miscues and able to find that spike to seal away that stock. So Quinnipiac, they get the win. The final score here, 24-3 over Marist. And what a showing for these two teams, because again, these were two teams at the top of the MAC, and Quinnipiac coming out with this strong of a showing, that's a good sign headed into the rest of this spring split.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Quinn are making a statement by winning to this degree. They are still primed, they are still ready, and they are still looking to take on any opponents. And I think Marist, they at least now know that, you know, maybe we got to put in a little bit of more work. Maybe we're not, you know, practicing as much of our opponents, but they still did absolutely phenomenal. We've had some good clippable moments, and I think this isn't going to demotivate them, but rather they are just going to advance longer in this series.
Marist, they get Canisius next week. We will see them there, but we will get an interview with one of the Quinnipiac players after a short intermission. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the EGFC. We are here with Crystal Rose from Quinnipiac, and congratulations on your victory this week. And I wanted to ask, this is a matchup against Marist. I mean, it looked like this was going to be almost a show match of a possible MAC finals, but you came out swinging from the gates. What was the preparation for this week like?
The preparation was pretty huge. Mr. Purple, shout out to him over there somewhere, did a lot of prep work, a lot of scouting, and we just wanted to put our best foot forth with all our heavy hitters.
You know, I definitely can respect that idea, especially when it comes to just setting up the momentum. And, you know, I'm very interested because you guys have had a good time to relax and, you know, basically the break. How much of that time did you guys really spend preparing against your future, you know, opponents rather than, you know, just maybe sitting around watching Netflix?
Over break, we did do some practice here and there, but it was Smash is somewhat of a mental game every now and again. You know, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. So, the break was very good mentally for probably a lot of our team. And then we just came back in to school and, started practicing and went right at it, you know?
Definitely, I love that idea. I definitely agree with it. Sometimes too much practice can be absolutely draining. So at least when it comes down to you, I'm more interested because we didn't get to see you play, but definitely the list that we saw, your characters are very interesting, and I'm kind of more interested of like what do you feel like your playstyle truly matches, especially like to say if you were into the next game, what would people be expecting?
Me personally, I don't know. I mean, with the three characters that I personally play, I'd try to find my best matchup against whoever I'm going up against, and then or whoever I'm feeling that day. Sometimes, the big character list, you're feeling some and not the others.
Mhm.
So, I'll just go in with whoever I'm feeling that day. Personally, yeah.
All right, and I guess my last question for you. Actually, I got two for you now that I think about it. The first question I want to ask: you guys next week you get Iona, another MAC battle in this MAC conference. It's very highly contested. Iona on the rise. I already asked kind of what your preparation looked like, but how do you prepare for the battle next week? How do you get back into the flow of things?
Well, we got practice every week, and obviously just random meetup games where we just want to play. But even in the background right now, we're preparing ourselves, our players, everyone to go into that battle swinging.
Right, and my last question for you, I'll basically hand you the mic. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out, say thank you to while you're here?
Well, I'd love to say thank you to everyone that played tonight, because obviously I did not, but everyone here did an incredible job, and also, I guess my friends and family back at home.
Yes, sir.
Let's go!
We love to see it. All right, thank you so much for joining us, Crystal Rose, and congrats on your win this week.
Thank you.
And with that, we will be cutting to a short break to get the next teams into the lobby. We'll be right back with DePaul going up against the newcomers to the EGF, the Montana Grizzlies, right after this. Don't go anywhere.
our empire.